Hi, I'm Dodo60 and welcome to my most recent house build, which is my take on a traditional style Vietnamese city house. So those of you who watch our vlogs as well as the house build videos, you'll know that my husband and I are currently travelling in Vietnam. We will be going to other places, but we're currently in Vietnam. And one of the things that I'm really loving whilst we're here is just how beautiful the traditional buildings are. There's a lot of more modern ones that some are lovely, some are less lovely, but the traditional old style buildings, they're just absolutely gorgeous. There's also, I might also do like a countryside style traditional building as well, because they're very different but also very beautiful. This one is based very heavily on a hotel that I think is cool. I'll put a link to the hotel down below. But we were sat in like an ice cream parlour and I was looking across the road and there was just this gorgeous hotel that I was like, yep, that is how I want to do my Sims video, because I've been thinking about it for a while. So we're really enjoying being in Vietnam and the culture and the history and the buildings. So the city is like many cities, and we're in Hanoi at the moment, and like many other cities in the world, it is very busy and traditionally very rammed, and I believe that there used to be a tax based on how wide the front of your house was. So lots of these houses are designed to be very thin to pay less tax, which is obviously very clever and makes complete sense if you're having a tax based on how wide your property is. So I've made it very thin. It's only 3 squares wide, which is a little thin. I did struggle a little bit, especially on the bedroom. I did want to, because originally you can see I did have them all like 6 squares across at the beginning, but then it just looked too wide, and I was like, this is not what the buildings actually look like, so we will just have to adjust it. The other thing is, as you can see, I made it only 3 floors high, 3 stories, and that was because in the olden days there was a rule that no properties were allowed to be higher than the King's Palace. So there was a maximum of 3 stories on all buildings that were not the King's Palace, obviously. The King's Palace I think was like 5 stories maybe, I'm not quite sure, but so the houses can never be more than 3 stories high, which is quite interesting. There also is traditionally little courtyards inside the older houses, but those are a slightly different style of older house, and that'd be like let the natural light come through towards the back, because obviously in Sims there's no ability to do this. This is a standalone house, but in reality these houses would be stacked side by side, so they'd be very dark in the middle of the house, so they would have a courtyard there to allow the light in. But that's a slightly different style to this style, so I haven't done that here, and also I just didn't think I'd have room for everything if I put that there. So the way you'll see in a minute, the way I got around the fact that it's obviously a solo house in its own lot, which it would never be a real city. You wouldn't have like just one house out on the street, you'd have them all bunched up side by side, as I just put in some like communal spaces on either side, just to kind of fill it in, make it look a bit right. So the other thing is that in Vietnam, red and yellow are considered lucky colours. So I did try to stick with sort of reds and yellows in quite a lot of my decorations, just as a little throwback to that. And also, I think if you're staying in like a hotel, then you'll just like go into a room like any other hotel anywhere in the world. But at the moment we're staying in a homestay, which is sort of like a family home that has been turned into like a hotel, but the family still lives in. And in in this homestay, and then in other places that we have seen, it is polite to take your shoes off. I was asked that you take your shoes off when you come upstairs. So on the ground floor and like in the reception and everything, you can like walk around in your shoes and stuff. But when you go upstairs, they ask very politely, of course, can you please take your shoes off? It's kind of similar to Japanese in that. So that's why you'll find in lots of these things the restaurant will be on the ground floor, so that people who just want to go to the restaurant don't have to like de-shoe to go eat. So that's what that little duck down bit there is. It's in this hotel that this is based off. There was a downstairs restaurant and then the hotel was up above for that reason, I suspect. So here I was trying to find, there's motorbikes everywhere in Vietnam, and I was trying to find something that looked like a motorbike so I could scale it up. But I didn't really find anything, so I just went with these shop signs instead to make it look like an actual street. Walking on the pavement in Hanoi especially is just impossible, you just can't. It's like, you can for a bit maybe, but then there's motorbikes that are parked on the street, there's like signs, there's like the sellers will sometimes bring their like racks of stuff out onto the street. Yeah, it's just impossible. So I decided to make like a public swimming pool type area on this side, I've not actually seen a single public swimming pool. I just wanted to put something to use up the space. I guess I could on the other side. And then I found this Vietnamese food stall and I was like, wow, that's perfect. Because street food culture here is huge. Excuse me, it's absolutely huge. Like, street food everywhere. We've been eating in some like nice looking restaurants. We've been eating from like what literally just looks like a hollow between buildings where people have just set up a little like deep fryer or something and they're just like cooking food, and we've not had a bad meal yet. Everything we've eaten has been delicious. And it's also normal and more traditional to sit on these very low stools, which is sort of fine for me. My husband is like over 6 foot tall, so he struggles a bit to get up and down into these tiny stools. But they're really cute, so I put those little stools that came with the wellness pack everywhere, because that is a lot more correct. Now on this side I decided to go for like a little public park. We've seen a couple of little public parks as we've been walking around. They normally have like temples in them. I don't know, I just didn't really have room. I guess I could have done it on the other side and just made this like a little park or a smaller swimming pool, I guess, but I wanted to have like a nice little fountain and just a little park area basically. And again you'll see I'm going for flowers that are red and yellow to stick with the lucky colours. And I did put a flag on that main pole because we've just been here during the Independence Day national holiday, so there's like celebrations everywhere. It was really good fun, and it meant that there's a lot of flags. Like almost every house we go past has a Vietnamese flag hanging outside, so we're seeing lots of flags. So I decided to put that flagpole there, and I know it's obviously not the Vietnamese flag, it's some Sim Llama equivalent, but it had red on it and the Vietnamese flag is red, so I was like, close enough. There's also lots of lanterns around in Hanoi, which are really, really cute. I really like them a lot. So maybe, I don't think this garden is necessarily, or this little park is necessarily 100% accurate at Vietnamese gardens. I just thought it looked quite nice and it used up this space, which otherwise would have sat empty, being a bit daft looking. Because I didn't think I could just leave it sat on this lot, so I did these little garden-y spaces. Put some rocks in, just fill in some of these gaps where it looks a bit weird. Add a public bin. So we obviously haven't really been in many Vietnamese kitchens because that's where they do the cooking, it's not really where you're allowed. But I think in general they're like very, very small, quite basic. So most restaurants here will, or like most smaller street food places, will specialise in one or two things. So the menus, we've hardly seen any menus that are longer than 5 items, even in like restaurants. They do tend to specialise very heavily, and then they just do what they do really well and make lots of it. So they don't have like huge domestic, like there are proper restaurants, like big ones, and there's like chains and stuff. We've seen like a Domino's and everything, but they're not that normal. And everywhere you go, you'll always get like chili or garlic on the table. Those are quite cool. Or like hot sauce or fish sauce or like a soy sauce. So depending on what they serve, you'll almost always get a little selection of sauces on your table when you sit down, and a little box of napkins. And then there's also, in lots of restaurants we've noticed, they have like bins underneath the table so that you can throw away your tissues as you go, like as you're eating. You don't have to like store them all up. There's effectively Vietnamese people like, do your damn self, like throw away your rubbish, we don't want to do it for you. The other thing is that although, so like in Japan, it's like a really, the hygiene is like a huge deal, and that is the same in Vietnam, except obviously Japan's a super developed nation, and Vietnam is not in the same way. But everyone's like super proud, so you'll see like street vendors and stuff, they'll like be out sweeping the street in front of their house and everything. The other thing is that in Vietnamese tradition, most people don't practice a specific religion like Christianity or Buddhism or whatever. Most people, there are Christians and Buddhists and everything in Vietnam, but most people sort of pray to their ancestors more, which means that every Vietnamese house that follows this tradition will have a shrine that's normally in the best room of the house, right at the front. They'll have a little shrine to their ancestors where they will go and pray, and they'll give offerings of fruit. Like there's a specific yellow fruit which obviously Sims doesn't have, so I just did a fruit bowl, and they'll light incense and pray. And they also believe in Vietnamese culture that the dead have a whole community, so when you burn something you send it to your dead ancestors. so that they can then use it in their new lives. So you'll see people burning like money and shoes and clothes and food, like all sorts. It's not, they don't burn like real money, they it's special money that you buy to then burn to send to your ancestors. So you'll see lots of people on the streets in Vietnam, like they have little fires outside the fronts of their shops or houses, and they'll burn stuff to send to their ancestors, which is, I think, a really sweet tradition. I quite like that, the thought that the dead loved ones are sort of happily thriving in their new society, not gone, just in a different place. The other thing is that similar to Japan, I think, like bidets are very, very common. Most toilets will have them, and I think the plumbing is not really set up for toilet paper, so most places have a little sign saying, can you please bin your toilet paper? So there'll be a little bin next to the toilet for that reason. I did want to get a double bed in here. It was a bit of a squish, but did make it in the end. So we're obviously staying in a homestay at the moment, and our bed is definitely squished into a corner similar to this. Lots of places do have balconies further up as well, and like I really love this, like loads of really, really dark wood. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's really beautiful, but the rooms they're not huge, they're small. So we're staying in the middle of the city. It's like small. We're now into the screenshot, so we're going to go all the way around the house. You'll be able to see that little garden I did and the public pool on the other side. I put no windows on the side of the house because obviously in reality these would be, there'd be like several of these backed up against each other, and I did a little cooking area out the back so that, because you always see these like old ladies sort of sitting around on their little stools preparing vegetables or meat or something to cook later, and I thought that looked a bit like that. I did a super rustic, very small kitchen. I did test everything in this house, by the way. Everything works. Nothing there's a link to the Sims 4 gallery down below, or you can search hashtag Dodo60. Then there's a little shrine. I put a little meditation stool in there so your Sims can go in there and they can pray or like meditate in front of that altar that I created, which I tested, did work. Got your bookcase, got a computer in there, little bathroom up the top, and then the bedroom, which is a little bit cramped but still quite nice. I think I'm quite proud of it. And that is it. Thank you for watching.